Hey everybody, welcome to Beaming Notes, and today we're going to look at the critical analysis, theme, tone, and poetic devices of the poem Mending Wall by Robert Frost. Critical analysis. Most of Frost's poems are simple at the surface and have a very deep layer of meaning beneath. Mending Wall is no exception. While the poet seems to be relating a simple tale of rebuilding a broken wall between the lands of two farmers, he is talking about a much larger and a profound subject, that of division between human beings. Writing as he did at the beginning of the 20th century, he was witness to the drawing of borders between nations. He knows that such borders are drawn to keep out immigrants and for the security of the citizens of the respective nations. However, Frost believes that such reasons have no basis. Cultural intermixing is a good thing, according to Frost, and all nations should strive to acquaint themselves with the cultures of the neighbouring countries, he feels. Only then can cultural synthesis happen and great art be created. Art does not follow any borders or boundaries. The same issues are dealt with in American poetry. English poetry, and in European poetry as well. In a world of increasing division, Frost feels a kind of camaraderie with all those poets who are writing about the union of the human species all over the world. Like his neighbour, there are people who would do anything to keep out so-called intruders and to protect their property with all their might, but Frost wants to convince all of them to demolish the walls they put up between themselves. He wants there to be an open dialogue between such people so that the problems can be solved in unison to make the world a better place. Poetic devices. Apostrophe. This rhetorical device is used when the poet addresses his or her words to an absent audience or even a non-living entity. In this poem, the poet uses a device of apostrophe in line 19 when he and his neighbor tell the boulders to stay balanced even after they have turned around after completing the job of mending the wall made of these boulders. He again uses it in line 30 to 35 when he speaks to his neighbor about the dispensability of the wall. Personification. This rhetorical device is used to bestow human qualities on something that is not human. In this poem, the poet uses the device of personification in lines 25 to 26 with respect to the apple trees in his orchard. He gives the apple trees the human abilities to walk and eat. Epigram. This rhetorical device is used to make a brief, interesting, memorable, and sometimes satirical statement. In this poem, the poet uses the device of epigram in lines 29 and 46 when he reports his neighbor saying that good fences make good neighbors. This means that there is harmony and non-interference. Simile. This rhetorical device is used when an overt comparison is made between two different things. In this poem, the poet uses a device of simile in lines 39 to 41 when he compares his neighbor to a savage from the Stone Age and also uses the word like while making this comparison. Theme. Hints about the perpetrator. Though Frost never names the person or thing that breaks down the wall, he does leave ample hints about the true identity of the perpetrator. The culprit in this question is poet himself. The first hint about this is given in line 2 when he uses the phrase frozen ground swell. Another term for this phenomenon is frost heave. Frost is also the poet's own surname. Again, towards the end of the poem, he talks about elves. Now, elves are known to be mischievous in nature. The poet also says that springtime has brought about the mischief in himself, so he has become elf-like. However, he isn't exactly an elf. He doesn't have their pointy ears or the supernatural powers. He is a mere mortal, and he doesn't actually have the courage to admit that it was he who broke down the wall. That is why he would prefer it if his neighbor would come forward and accuse him of the same. If the neighbor were to do so, Frost would openly admit to his crime. Until the neighbor asks though, the poet will only try to convince him that the wall is unnecessary and hope he will agree not to rebuild it. Savagery and darkness. The poet says that his neighbor appears to be a savage from the Stone Age using the stones of the wall as weapons, and also he has a kinship with darkness. Both savagery and darkness are meant to symbolize the small-mindedness of his neighbor. In the Stone Age, man was still uncivilized. The world had not yet come under his control and felt that he had to jealously guard his few possessions from any creature that came his way or any force of nature that he is unaware of. That is why the Stone Age man fashioned weapons out of stone, not having discovered metals yet, and used them in constant combat with anything he might be confronted with. The poet's neighbor also jealously guards his land and tries to keep out Frost from his property by building the stone wall, and Frost thinks that this is most unjust of him. Frost also says the darkness he notices in his neighbor is not the darkness of the shade of trees. Rather, it is the darkness of the heart. He is not open-minded and generous like Frost. He does not believe that all men should interact with each other. He is determined to wall himself in and wall everyone else out. Tone. The poet's tone here is quite mysterious when he suggests that some natural or supernatural force is tearing down the wall without being seen or heard. However, this tone changes to one of mischief when he tries to convince his neighbor not to rebuild the wall. He could have been hostile towards his neighbor's stubborn refusal to listen to him, but he is not. Instead, he chooses to simply listen to his neighbor speak about the utility of fences and go about his own business every spring.